everyone, and welcome back to episode number 2 of Tagged. I am Hosko, also known as Sarah Hosking, and I am joined by my co-host Rowey, also known as Sarah Rowe. This is Tagged, thanks to Victoria, every bit different. So we will be talking injuries, and make sure you stick around for the end of the episode because I will be dishing the most dirt on one of the league's players who is having the worst luck across the competition. But before we get there, Rowie, I want to know, you had a pracky match on the weekend. How did it go? Did you get into any fights?
Well, Hosko, I was just delighted to be back on the park after being, I counted, I think it was 8 months since our last game. It feels like forever. It feels like we've been preparing for so long. I think there was so many of us girls who were just like, we just want to compete at this point. So it was great to be back out in the park. I think there was lots to take away from it. Structure-wise, tactically, technically, I think we learned a lot about ourselves, but also about Geelong, and there was lots of good performances from some great players. Becky Webster from Geelong was flying. Aisling Maloney, the Irish girl, she has it all. There was lots good to take from it. So how did you feel? How did you feel at Richmond?
Well, I loved the girls. I wasn't out there, so it was a bit of a bummer, but I did love watching because I saw a bit of biff going on. I saw some sledging happening, or heard some sledging.
There was a bit of sledging going on in our game as well, between the two Irish.
Drop them.
Two Irish. Murren Atkinson, our new Irish, her first ever AFLW game, and she had a lip on her like no other.
You want to make sure though, if you're going to give someone a good sledge or talk shit to someone, you want to make sure you got good game.
100%. And she was prancing around in these new bright pink boots as well. I was like,
hey, what's wrong with
you think you are? But between herself and Aisling Maloney, two Irish going head to head, it was a very different look out there because they were both kind of doing whatever they wanted, out of structure completely, and it was just a very interesting matchup. But yeah, we love to see it.
Absolutely, we love to see it.
But to talk about scratch games at the weekend, it feels like AFLW is really around the corner. It feels like we're getting really close to season. So my question for you is, do you think scratch games have an impact on what we might see from teams going forward for the season?
I mean, it's so hard. Scratch matches are always putting forward sometimes you're just playing players to get some structures right. You're playing different matchups. So, we look at some of the results from the weekend. There weren't too many huge surprises for me. I'll touch on quickly. You got North Melbourne beat St Kilda quite comfortably. Hawthorn actually beat Essendon, so that was a good one for me that took the likes, which I think there was about 15 points of difference. Port Adelaide were close. They hit 34 points going against Adelaide, who won 58. And then my beloved Tigers, we got the win over Western Bulldogs as well. So, I mean, for me, the scratch matches, you always get a lot out of it, and it's more about the team for me. So you work out which kind of combinations work best. I think it's always good just to get a few cobwebs out, and it's probably the next two pracky matches that mean the most.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you on that point. And I think the result that surprised me the most was the high scoring game of Sydney versus GWS.
What was
I think it was
like?
84-19.
Yeah.
It's a really high scoring game. So Sydney looked to be on form. Luckily us Collingwood girls have them round one, so we look forward to that.
Oh, that would be a good clash.
Yeah, so it'll be a good clash. But then also we have North Melbourne. North Melbourne played Western Bulldogs? Yeah.
No, they had St Kilda.
St Kilda, okay. So Carlton beat Melbourne. That was a surprising result for me as well. But from all accounts of what I've heard is that there was a slow start from Melbourne, and then they kind of came to grips with it towards the end of the game. Then Brisbane beat Gold Coast, which is no surprise really. So there was a lot of good action over the weekend. But I think the thing with scratch games is that it helps teams get their team structure right. It helps people who are lining up in new positions, like individual players, where we might see them play this season. Helps players, I think, tactically, technically, and then I suppose psychologically as well, preparing for a game. But like you said, I think it's sometimes getting that poor game out of your system first so that you can then perform on round one. But we also have scratch games again coming up this weekend. We head to Freo for the weekend, so looking forward to that. But
bit of travel,
yeah, a bit of quality warmer, time with the girls.
Well, the other thing that comes out of scratch matches, and I'll touch on especially our game, was injuries. So it's so tough during scratch matches, whether or not you put everyone out there and people on managed minutes. But we had 2 major injuries coming out of the Richmond Western Bulldogs game, and the first one was Mua Lalawifi. I always get her name.
I was going to say, and thank you to you for pronouncing that name. I can't get it out.
Mua is she's a gorgeous person on and off the field, and she's just a fierce competitor across the competition. But unfortunately, she went down with her ACL in the scratch match too, and she's just come across from Carlton to Western Bulldogs after being delisted. So it's absolutely devastating and heartbreaking for her and obviously her teammates around. But then also for me, like, you know, I feel like I get a little bit choked up because, you know, you just love and adore your teammates. But Montana McKinnon as well, who's just moved from Adelaide to Richmond, she also did her ACL on the weekend. So unfortunately, that's 2 ACLs in the one go. And Montana's just, again, it breaks my heart to know that she's now out for the season. But you just see all the time and effort that these girls put into training and then not even getting to get out there in round 1.
I know, it's devastating to see so many injuries, and I think this time of year it seems to be really heightened. Every year we seem to see a lot of, unfortunately, ACLs in the first couple of rounds, and it always raises questions as to why, how, has it got to do with preparation? What has it got to do with? But all these girls are doing the same thing that you and I are doing every week, and I think that's why it touches us so much, because you're like, that could be anyone, and you never think that will happen to you. But you know, we wish those girls a speedy recovery. But it's devastating, and like you said, it's really devastating for your teammates as well to watch the people you know and see how much work they put in on a day-to-day basis go through something so hard and what that road looks like ahead of them.
Oh, it's horrible. But on the probably arguably the biggest news as well I've heard, and on the injury front, and it's probably one I like to take a little bit more lighthearted, is our very own Ruby Slisher got her nose broken. Can you please? I've heard now there's rumours, I don't know what you want to call them, but there's a photo circulating of Ruby and she's drop dead gorgeous and beautiful. But I don't know if this is just the angle of the camera.
Yeah, so as I was playing the game, I saw Ruby go into I think it was the second contest, and she kind of took her a couple of seconds extra to come out of there, and I was like, oh God, is she okay? Anyway, I didn't see her till the end of the quarter, and I was like, oh, I hope she's not injured or anything. And then I went off for my rotation and I saw her holding a tissue to her nose, and I was like, what's that? What is going on? And I was like, you have she was like, I think I just broke my nose. And I was thinking straight away, I was like, well, does that mean that Fox are going to get rid of you?
Yes.
Who's putting it back in for you? There's a whole picture to this story. We need to get that sorted quickly.
Well, that is the biggest question out of it all. Now, I don't think her football is at any question, and her job in football, but her job in media, that is the money maker. So, yeah, let's get some answers from Fox. Is Ruby going to lose her job?
Is Ruby going to lose her job? Yeah, she, you know what, as usual in Ruby form, she took it very lightheartedly. I think she got her nose back into place, but she might need a small bit of tweaking in the next week. So
she needs a whole lot of tweaking, and it ain't just the nose. No, well, hopefully for Rubes it is a speedy recovery. But Rowey, before we finish on the injury front, the part that I do want to talk about is obviously the toll that injuries can take, not just on you as a teammate, but also physically in yourself. If you've got an injury, what's it been like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a part of things about injuries are that people don't see what the individual is going through, but the person really feels it. So it's the day-to-day stuff. It's the worrying about when you're going to get back. You want to see results straight away. You want planning around it. You want your rehab coach and your physio to be across everything, and it's like you need to dot your I's and cross your T's, and you already do that as an athlete, but it's an extended version of that. You have to go to all these appointments outside football, so your workload essentially increases a lot without, I suppose, the good stuff. The fun stuff that we all do it for is playing football, playing games. You're doing it to get back to baseline, to then get back to best preparation. So it feels like you always have a long way to go, and I think watching your teammates go through really hard injuries is also really hard to watch. But I think it really takes its toll mentally, physically, and also just on your day-to-day life. I feel like you can't switch off from it, whereas with football sometimes you can go to train well, and you get that release essentially, and then you walk away from football, you can switch off into the next thing in your life. But when it comes to injuries, it completely consumes you, and I think you worry about it a lot. talk to me about how you've been feeling or how you felt in your time with big injuries.
Yeah, well, I'm still coming back from a hamstring tendon. So I had surgery maybe back in November last year, and then throughout this pre-season have re-torn part of the tendon. So not as bad as it was, but again, you sort of touch on that impacts. Like, I'm such a social person and love being around people, but there's no doubt, like, throughout that time in rehab, that it's like, you know, more myself, but it can be quite isolating, and the anxiety that comes with it at times as well. Like, I'm so motivated, and I sometimes compare it to like a normal day job. So if you look at someone that does an office job, imagine coming into the office every day, but you can't actually do your work properly, and you're doing that for a year. It's so hard to then feel like you're having the same impact that you could in an office if you were at 100% capacity. So it's, you know, and again, it really sucks. Like, at the moment, I'm looking forward to round one at some point, and knowing that would be a game against Jess. It's not just the hype of the game and making round one with your team, but it's also the added factor. Like, my whole family's flying over to Perth, and my little nephews are going, and my nana, who's 89 years old, is going to go on her first holiday in, God, I think it's at least 20 years. So, you know, you look at all of that external stuff as well, and then to be able to sit through injuries, and, you know, I'm still sitting there going, I really want to push myself to get back, but also what's the right thing to do if you're not ready.
And it's not to mention the fact that you feel disconnected from your teammates as well, and that the club and your team are doing their best to wrap their arms around you, but there is a real sense of loneliness within that time as well. Yeah,
well, I think that's why teammates and team and the culture is so important. Like, I absolutely love Richmond, and I love my staff members, and I love my teammates, because they feel like a second family, and I not for one second feel like I'm left out at any point in time. I genuinely feel valued, and I just enjoy my time there. So even in this space where it can be so isolating, I still feel super connected as an athlete, and even just to have friendships within those four walls as well.
Yeah, and I think it's like that. It's when you win games together, you lose games together. I think the people in your work environment really understand what you're going through, because most people have been through it, be it a younger athlete, an older athlete. Everyone gets it in those four walls. So that really helps to have that support, but it doesn't mean that it's still not really hard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I could talk about injuries forever, but we're not going to do that because we don't want to start crying on show. So we'll jump into, like, obviously talking about the AFLW space and coming up, and obviously the impact that injuries has had. But what about the standard of football? That's always been a talking point. As the years have gone on, there's been 9 seasons. Our pre-seasons have got longer as well. How have you found the impact of this pre-season?
Yeah, this off-season has been really different, because there's been an awful lot of preparation with no application, because the 6 months essentially that we had off, where clubs were still training and we still had programs to follow, and then we had pre-season, it feels like it's been a really long wait till season comes around. So I'm so excited that season is finally here and that we get to compete again. But I do think that with putting in that extra bit of time and effort into our off-season and kind of being in a controlled environment in the club, whereas a lot of us go away for a couple of weeks, do our training away from the club, or probably aren't under such strict precautions from the club, whereas now we have to account for everywhere we are. So that has changed.
That's a good point, actually, though. So when you're saying we have to account for where we are at any given time, I'm assuming you have to do the same thing, but we have to let AFL know and let our club know our exact whereabouts 100%. Every day of the year.
I know, and you wouldn't know where I would have gone to Ireland for a while. I might have done a bit of travelling in Paris. you name it. I could be anywhere. But I essentially had that freedom to do that. Whereas now I feel more like, no, it does feel like it's 12 months of the year. It doesn't really feel like there's that same on-off season. But the off season does look different in terms of the fact that we're not playing games, but it does feel a lot different this year. I don't know, did you feel like your off season was a lot different this season?
Well, I think it was. Again, I just feel like the professionalism of AFLW is growing each year. So the demand on your bodies, the demand on your time, the demand is just significantly increasing year on year, which in turn, I feel like that is the right decision, because I want the competition to move to full-time professionalism. Now, that for me is the the end goal. I don't know if it's going to happen in my time, but I want to make AFLW a better place for the younger generation coming through. And I think that is extremely important, that we need to make sacrifices right now, and people that are within the competition, you know, you've had to sacrifice a full-time job at times in order to make sure that you can train as a professional athlete.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you either come with us on this journey or you're going to be left behind, because the competition is progressing. So girls do need to take more time off work outside. But the other part of it, and the way I look at it at times, is that I'm very grateful to grow up in this time where I have time to progress in my career outside sport and also do my sport at a high level. So the fact that we can do this, you know, the fact that we have time to do other stuff, it gives us that kind of lens of the real world and being an athlete. And obviously the end goal is that we want it to get to full-time professional. But I was at an AFL Connect event during the week, and Mark Williams spoke about the fact that Choco, his name is, he might be more known as that. Choco.
That was the Aussie.
Choco. He spoke about the fact that the competition and where the AFLW game is at now is how he grew up and what AFL men's were like in his time. So it was like, we are going to get there slowly but surely, but it has progressed at a really fast rate.
Well, speaking of progression though, you know, head of AFLW, or new head of AFLW, Emma Moore, recently this week spoke about, you know, whereabouts does the AFLW competition sit. One of her key targets is going to be to find a key place where AFLW sits and stays. Now, that is in your calendar. So, you know, it probably brings up a good talking point, is where do you think it should sit?
Well, Hosko, you know that I am filthy about the fact that AFLW has gone to winter in Melbourne. That means if I go home to Ireland, I get winter in Ireland as well. Whereas before that, I used to get summer in Ireland, summer in winter. So it was the perfect scenario for me. So to get a European summer is probably what I would like best, and to be aligned with the men's.
Well, I actually did get asked a question on Triple M this morning on the breakfast show, and I'm going to give you guys a little listen in how that went.
When is, in your opinion, the ideal time for the AFLW season?
Ideally,
best case scenario, if broadcast, if there was no other issues, I would love for it to run alongside the men's competition.
If you started at the same time as the men, around the same time as the men, and had like the grand final and finals in the middle of the season when they have a sort of break, would that be something that you could look at?
Absolutely. I think that would work. And then season would finish, and then Europe summer would be around, I think.
That's it. Sounds ideal. No, that's it.
Okay, we are more in tune than I thought. We just made the exact same point.
Well, all great ideas, but lucky enough, it's not our job. So have fun, Emma Moore. Okay, Rowey, I want to hear what is on your tagged list this week, thanks to Victoria, every bit different.
What's on my tagged list this week is a place called Future in Richmond. So I got a starter the other day. It was honey glazed sourdough dipped in curry. I know it sounds
dipped in curry.
Yeah, so it's a bit of sweet and savoury. I know it sounds a bit controversial, but it was 10 out of 10 reviews. So what's on your tagged list?
My tagged list is Point Leo Estate. Now, I am a winery gal. I love a nice fine dining, but if you head down to Mornington Peninsula, Point Leo Estate is located down there. They have a stunning vineyard, and they also have a lovely sculpture walk. Sculpture walk. So they get in some really expensive sculptures and local artists, and it's a really cool place. I took my mum and dad. I also went with Jess and a friend, and they've got a lovely Pinot as well.
Just quickly, Hosko, before you finish, I just want to know, is that a hatted restaurant? Do you have to wear a hat?
They actually do have the fine dining area called Laura, and it is a two-hatted restaurant. So I got the double hat going. That's for you, Rubes. But it is absolutely stunning and lovely. Highly recommend if you have a chance to get down and check out Point Leo Estate. Thanks to Victoria, every bit different.
Now, Hosko, at the start of the episode, we touched on something where you said you wanted to tell me a story where someone had really bad luck. Can you share with me what that is?
I did. Now, this is across the AFLW competition, but I have one of Essendon's players staying with me for a few days, Cody Jarks. Now, I'm about to throw you under the biggest bus you've ever seen because she stayed at my house for a couple nights. Both of us have gone separate rooms and we both had an afternoon nap. She's then woken up. We've both woken up 2 hours later. She comes into my room and she goes, I don't know if I can say this. She goes, Hosko, my car's been towed. And so I have lost my shit. The poor thing. So she's come and stayed. She walked outside and has gone to find her car completely missing. So I don't know if you've ever had your car towed before, but you literally do. There's no note left. There is no sign of your car, so you don't know whether or not it's been towed or whether someone's stolen it.
Yeah,
so
and it feels like a magic trick. It kind of feels like, did I not park my car there? Like, who is playing tricks with me here? So yes, to answer your question, I've had my car towed one too many times, but to mention one, a couple of weeks ago I went to the dentist and I parked in a freeway. Now, I struggle at the best of times to read the parking signs.
No.
I've been here 7 years and I still can't read them.
Is it the English part or?
Well, like, there's two parts to the signs, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you giving me two messages? Give me one message on the sign and I'll follow it. When there's two messages, I fail to understand what means what.
So the little...
Or like the little S on one side and then the times on the other side.
What about the little picture of the truck that is towing a car? Is that the giveaway?
If they give me the heads up on that, it would be perfect. But anyway, came out of the dentist, my car was gone and I was like, oh, not today. It was one of those days where, you know, when it rains it pours. You had other things going on that day and you're like, this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. So anyway, I walk around the corner and I see my car like slowly drifting away, and I was like to the guy, I was like, please just leave it there. Just, you know, we can forget about this, like, it's all good. Classic Irish fashion. I tried to talk my way out of it and he was like, no, you're still going to have to pay the fine.
Didn't
so
work.
I think it didn't work for the first time ever. It didn't work.
I mean, you didn't bat those eyelids and say, please, sir.
I tried every trick in the book. And anyway, he made me pay for the fine, and then that was fine. I took a picture of it and sent it to one of my friends at the time. And my parents have been on my back about things like that and stupid things that I do on a day-to-day basis. So I was like, I really don't want them to find out. But anyway, I get a phone call about 2 days later from my mum saying, hey, Sarah, just wondering, like, I got a picture sent, it's through on my phone somehow, of a car being towed away. And I'm thinking, how does she have this picture? It wasn't her I sent it to. So then I ring Dad and I was like, how does Mum have that photo? And he was like, well, what happened? And I was like, okay, whatever, I got my car towed, don't give out to me, la la la. And he was like, oh, Sarah, by an accident I clicked a button on your mum's phone and all your iCloud stuff is shared to your mum's phone. And I was like, tick, tick, tick. What else is on the phone?
All of your iCloud
Everything
stuff.
on my iCloud. So I was like, she's obviously sitting at home in bed scrolling through everything. I'm like, what did she find?
Car towing is the least of your problems.
It's the least of my worries. So anyway, I haven't gone back on my photos. I was like, Dad, change that ASAP. And I just hope she didn't see anything else.
What could she find?
What could she possibly find? Who knows? Maybe the tag team are the only one that can know that. It's a secret.
Well, okay, you now fit into this category as well. Cody also walked off down the street. We went and got a coffee and she stood in a huge pile of dog shit. So you can see these photos.
When it rains,
tagging
it
on.
pours.
But now, that unfortunately for you, or fortunately for you and Cody, that's not the worst. There is someone else that has had even more shit luck than the both of you. Now, I touched on earlier, my poor teammate Montana McKinnon has just done her ACL. So that's the first straw. The poor thing, no one should ever have to do an ACL because it's a 12-month injury minimum, and especially Montana, she's just a gorgeous person. But what she's gone and done yesterday is she's gone to a surgeon's appointment to find out when she can have surgery. She's currently on crutches, and she's crutched out of the surgeon's appointment, looked across the road where she parked her car and couldn't find her car. Montana on crutches has just done her ACL and just found out that her car got towed as well.
No.
All in the space of a couple of days.
That is too much. That is like the worst of the worst.
But do you know what? Actually, I'm going to throw her under the bus again here, though, because she did tell me, now she's on crutches. Surgeon encouraged her to walk if she can walk. And she said, I'm doing pretty well. I can walk. But she crutched into the tow yard to make them feel bad about taking her car, and I think that is well deserved.
100%. And what did they say? Was it, please tell me there was sympathy. There needed to be a lot of sympathy.
They said that's $356, please pay your fine.
Honestly, they're relentless.
Now, that's enough of our, I don't want to throw anyone else under the bus, but what I am going to do is I'm going to make a call out to every single AFLW player out there, and please dob your teammates in and give us the dirty stuff on your teammates, because this is what makes Tagged so wonderful, is that we give the inside scoop on AFLW players. Never too much dirt, but please send us through anything that your teammates
Send
doing.
us through everything, bad, good, and we'll sift through it. We won't put anything too bad up, but just send it all this way. We'll just keep it up here. Can't believe we're at the end of the episode already. Hosko, time flies when you're throwing your teammates under the bus.
Stop talking shit, Rowey. That's enough. We are out for today, everyone. We want you listening again every week, please. If you like us, subscribe, follow us. You can also contact us, send us through some messages or questions. We now have an email address. It's tagged@afl.com.au. We'll be back next week.
Thank you for watching Tagged.